Amtrak's Sunset Limited Westbound. In Part 1, we left Crowley and the rest of Acadiana chasing the sunset toward Los Angeles.
Avenue. Avenue F.
The sun was setting as we left Lake Charles, crossing the Calcasieu River. This is looking from the north side of the train. Across the Calcasieu River, Westlake is the industrial side of Lake Charles. Petrochemicals are processed here. There's less air pollution here today than in the past, when you could smell Lake Charles before seeing it. While the chemical plant seemed to stretch out forever, it did end, and we continued on through the town of Sulphur and on toward the state line. We soon found ourselves crossing a true Louisiana swamp, chasing that sunset into East Texas.
That's right, we had a bridge to go over. That's funny.
Sabine River, we are now in Texas.
The revised schedule of the Sunset Limited gives us more daylight, allowing us to see this iconic hotel in Beaumont, Texas. The Port of Beaumont connects its petroleum industry with the Gulf of Mexico. Heading west from Beaumont, the Sunset Limited on the revised schedule travels through East Texas. It always impresses me that there's so much countryside even between these large cities. Speaking of large cities, our next stop is Houston, the largest city in Texas. Leaving the Houston Amtrak station, the train does an interesting maneuver. First, it travels straight out and crosses the main railroad tracks, the main line right here at this diamond. Now look at some of these houses, these worn down, boarded up houses. I've been seeing them here for years.
Now we're going back the mile.
What Charlie says is true. As if seeing those old dilapidated houses once wasn't enough, now we back up on the line to cross the main line again. You can see the freight train through the window. The main line is double tracked, so after backing up, we join the main line for the next part of our trip. Even with the revised schedule, the Houston area is the last we see in the daylight. Heading westbound, it seems we always arrive in San Antonio in the dark. When Southern Pacific ran the Sunset Limited, they picked up westbound cars in El Paso. Amtrak+Sunset Limited picks up westbound cars from Chicago at San Antonio. The platform is a busy place. I often sleep through this stop, but this time, in the wee hours, I got my video camera out and walked around. The hubbub on the platform ended. I seemed out there by myself. The San Antonio station seemed to be made for nighttime. I walked to the rear of the train and found this private car. Amtrak often pulls cars belonging to railroad clubs. Cars from streamliners during railroad's golden age are often refurbished by individuals or clubs. This was a car from the famous California Zephyr. This retired Southern Pacific steam engine was strung with lights for Christmas. At San Antonio, 2 cars from the Chicago train are hitched to the Sunset Limited for the trip to Los Angeles. These added cars are from a train called the Texas Eagle, a train Amtrak saved from the old Missouri Pacific Railroad. Looking into the waiting room, I'm reminded that some of these passengers have to wait for hours before they can board the Sunset Limited. It would take some time for the new train to be configured, but I was ready to go back aboard the sleeping car. After our late-night hookup with the Texas Eagle in San Antonio, we awoke to a whole other world. This is West Texas, having nothing in common with East Texas except the state's name. Gone are all the bayous, marshes, rice fields, and oak trees. We're riding through the desert here, somewhere between San Antonio and Del Rio, looking a lot like Mexico's northern deserts. That should be no surprise. All of Texas used to be part of the República Mexicana.
Rio Grande, I presume.
Right on the border near Del Rio, we see a break in all this dry country.
Lake Amistad.
Doesn't that mean friendship?
Yes.
I don't think it's too friendly anymore, is it?
Well, it's an act of friendship between the United States and Mexico. Well, look how blue.
We're approaching Lake Amistad, a reservoir spanning the border, promoting friendship, or amistad, between the United States and Mexico. We cross the lake on this bridge, parallel to the highway bridge.
This is west of Del Rio.
We pass through mile after mile of West Texas desert until...
Here you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one side of the train now. It's 370 feet high, 2,700 feet long. Pecos River Hybrid, highest operating bridge in the United States. Ranks the third largest in the world. Pecos River Hybrid.
That's the old railroad.
If you didn't hear all that, we crossed the Pecos River on the highest railroad bridge in the United States. This is the view looking north. Let's see the crossing looking south.
This is the Pecos River that we're crossing over now, the highest railroad bridge in the United States, the Pecos River.
If you've heard of Judge Roy Bean, the law west of the Pecos, well, this is the Pecos River they're talking about. Somewhere west of here, we arrive at Sanderson, Texas.
Check out this station.
Just to be clear, this is not the Amtrak station. I'm just intrigued by old ruins.
Boy, we didn't stop for long. Old corral here.
We continued toward El Paso. All these wide open spaces brought us to Alpine, Texas, a small, windy West Texas town. The train picks up a new crew here. And people get to watch the Sunset Limited come and go. Alpine was born in 1882 with the coming of the railroad. It was a good source of water for the steam locomotives of the time. To this day, it's an important stop for the Sunset Limited. Today, it's the gateway to Big Bend National Park. On one trip, we left Alpine to find snow in the desert. In another trip, a dust storm. Approaching El Paso, the desert gives way to fields growing cotton and orchards. Now we find ourselves in the outskirts of El Paso.
This is El Paso. Got a big church there.
At this point, we enter the Union Pacific Freight Yards.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention. Our next station stop, El Paso, Texas, will be coming up in about 7 minutes. If El Paso is your final destination, please check the seats around you, the floor below you. Make sure you have all your items with you. Also, if you brought on any carry-on bags with you, make sure you take those down with you as well. Upon departure from El Paso, you'll be leaving the state of Texas and entering the state of New Mexico. Our next station stop after El Paso will be Deming, New Mexico, hour and 30 minutes away. But for the meantime, folks, El Paso, Texas will be coming up shortly. Please stay within the vicinity of the train, and please watch your step as you're stepping off. Thank you.
And here we wait until the eastbound Sunset Limited passes. And what about our arrival in El Paso? Well, we have to wait until part 4 of the Sunset Limited Westbound. Thanks for watching. The long trek across Texas comes to a close as we pull into El Paso. This Union Pacific freight yard is close to the passenger station.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention. Our next station stop, El Paso, Texas, will be coming up in about...
The Sunset Limited began this journey in New Orleans on its way to Los Angeles, picking up cars from Chicago at San Antonio. Now it approaches El Paso, some 900 miles since we crossed the Sabine River at Orange. As the train eases up to the El Paso station, it can look like we're passing it up. The front end of the train pulls well ahead so that all the cars can fit on the platform. For the first time since Alpine, passengers can get off and walk around. El Paso is a service stop and a crew change. This station is one of the most notable buildings in El Paso. I always get off here to get a good look at the train that has carried me over 1,000 miles so far. At the rear of the train, I see the private cars we've been pulling. These classic cars are owned by clubs, and they pay Amtrak to pull them behind the regular train. These cars are self-contained by necessity. Riders on these cars don't have access to Amtrak services like the dining car.
This is great when the people come into the train.
The Sunset Limited picks up many new passengers in El Paso. From the Amtrak station, it's easy to get a glimpse of Ciudad Juarez on the Mexican side of the border. As the train pulls out, this border city remains in sight.
Okay, I think that's the Rio Grande. Or as we'd say in Spanish, Rio Grande.
We get as close as 20 feet to the border between the United States and Mexico here. Again, that's Juarez, Mexico, off to the left-hand side of the train.
These hills are usually hot and dry, but on this trip, they're covered in snow.
Yep, that snow out there.
Yep, that's the border right there. That's what that sign, that green sign. I remembered that from coming over the first time. So that fence right there, that's the border.
Border patrol on my side.
Oh, our
There's
side
three
too.
there.
3 of them. Well, they should have an easy time tracking someone in the snow. It wasn't always snowy when we left El Paso. Looking north from the train, New Mexico's Las Cruces country was bathed in that magic hour light photographers love so much. El Paso is very spread out, in this case sprawling to the west. And near the west end of El Paso, we find ourselves in this new train yard.
Yeah, Dad.
With concrete cross ties and facilities to lift cargo containers, this was not my father's train yard. Year after year and trip after trip, we watched the Union Pacific Railroad build this huge facility. We waited here with the eastbound Sunset Limited until we were given the green light to continue rolling westward.
You waved at me.
3 Indians.
Through New Mexico, we still had some great western scenery. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me glued to the window. West Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona all have their share of this magnificent Southwest scenery. We awoke to California's Palm Springs and scores of wind turbines. This magical country told us that we were getting closer to Los Angeles.
And we do hope you enjoy your stay in Los Angeles, or wherever your final destination may be.
Well, we did it. Chased the sunset all the way to Los Angeles. There are so many things to do here. Close to Union Station, you can tour the oldest house in Los Angeles, have guacamole made fresh at your table, or just stroll down Calle Alvarado. Union Station awaits you at the end of this long journey. You can catch another train here, or just cool your heels down in L.A. Either way, you can celebrate your ride on one of America's most famous trains, the Sunset Limited.